Okay, it's looking good. Hello everyone, Artemu the Violet Wizard here. And today we're going to continue our Legend of Zelda Link to the Past Randomizer run. So yeah, I usually don't do 2 streams in 2 days in a row, but I just really had a blast playing for this game yesterday that I want to jump right back into playing it again. But it's a bit later in the day because I was busy taking care of some other stuff. So yeah, I am very excited to be able to continue this journey. So in the last session, we managed to clear 2 dungeons, the Thieves' Hideout and the Desert Palace, managing to get 2 of the 7 crystals we need in order to unlock the final area of the game, as well as getting a lot of other good items. So we're definitely making some very good progress in this adventure across Hyrule. So for this session, we're definitely going to be exploring a lot more of this world. But first, there is one thing I want to take care of. So right before I started this stream, I decided to check on a certain area that we only briefly visited because I felt like there probably wasn't going to be anything of importance that we could get over there. And from my investigation, I found out, oh yeah, we definitely want to go to this place. So we're just going to spend the beginning of this session heading on over to Zora's Domain, as this is the area that has something that's going to be very important for us continuing our journey here across Hyrule. But yeah, I am really excited to be playing this game again. It is just such an incredible game, and I really love the randomizer challenge. This really makes this so much fun. While we're here at the shop, I'm gonna save our empty bottle until we can find another fairy. Because we did use one back when we were doing the hideout, as we had to use a fairy when we were fighting the boss blind. So there is that. So it's quite interesting with the different rules with the randomizer. There are certain other qualities you can have, such as one of them being that it swaps the location of the boss monsters. So there could come a situation where you would actually have to fight Lon Malas in the Thieves' Hideout, or something like that. I think that's quite the interesting way of trying to play for this challenge, but it's not going to be how we are approaching things for this game. We will very much be experiencing it somewhat the main path that we are intended to with the base game, where we have the bosses in each of their set dungeon locations. But yeah, it is definitely quite interesting. You can even set the end goal for whatever randomizer run you're doing. So, in our instance, our only end goal really is to defeat Ganon. But, yeah, there are a few other different things that you can have set for whatever your end goal is going to be. Anyway, up here at the very end of Zora's Domain, if we approach this spot over here, King Zora will come out of the water, and in exchange for 500 rupees, he is able to give us an item. In this case, we actually got the item that you are normally supposed to get in the main game, and that is the flippers. With these, we now have the ability to swim, and this is going to unlock so many new things for us on this journey. Now that we have the ability to travel across water, this unlocks so many places that we can explore. Like, we can go back to Lake Hylia. There's definitely an area very close by that we'll definitely want to go to, which is the Swamp Palace. But we're gonna wait a while before we go to the Swamp Palace, since we don't have everything we need to clear that area yet. In fact, we can't even really do the Swamp Palace until we get something a bit later that's going to be useful to us. But yep, I definitely want to stop here first, because as it turns out, King Zora did have something that is necessary for us to continue this adventure. Alright, so now we got that taken care of. Around this area, if we investigate the waterfall here, we can actually go and acquire 2 items in these chests. We can get 50 rupees and the lantern. So now that we have the lantern, we're just able to freely light torches. And this opens up some more stuff for us to do, as we can use the lantern in order to finally climb up the mountain. Oh man, I am so happy about that. We're getting so many good stuff. Oh, and with that, we can also clear the Eastern Palace. Since, well, I don't know if we're going to be able to clear it. But we can at least give it a shot with our current equipment, since we'll be able to explore it more thoroughly. There's just one particular aspect about the Eastern Palace I'm a little concerned about. But yeah, that waterfall there, in the base game, it would be a fairy that appears there. And you're able to throw in some of your items to see what would happen. And if she's able to give you an upgrade to your shield and your boomerang when you throw those items in there. So that's definitely very important to note. But yeah, over there we just got some basic stuff. Want to head over here. So taking that whirlpool is actually a quick shortcut over to Lake Hylia. You can use the whirlpools to quickly swap between different sections of this world. And with that, we are finally able to investigate the inner section of Lake Hylia. This area will definitely have a lot of stuff for us to eventually see later on. But for the time being, the main thing that we want to do is this big island over here. There's also that island there that we'll be able to access later. But it seems like it only has some rupees on it. Normally you would get a piece of heart on that island. And of course, if you lift up that rock, that exposes a portal leading into the Dark World, and one of the later dungeons we can access in this game. But over here, this is the main area that you're going to want to spend your rupees on. So this fairy here will offer you upgrades to your bombs and your arrows. And that is going to be very useful to us on our journey. Just being able to increase our capacity for holding these items. And it's definitely going to be a lot of these that we can afford. So we don't currently have the bow and arrow. So I don't feel like it's going to be necessary for us to buy the upgrade for the arrows just yet. So we're mostly going to spend these on bombs. So I definitely know it takes a little while for this to... So we might have to leave and come back in order to get the next bomb upgrade to spawn. But yeah, this is where you go if you want to increase your capacity for holding bombs and arrows. It's going to be our main thing we're going to be spending rupees on during this adventure, so... yeah, definitely come here when you have a good amount of rupees in order to do this. So back in the original game, you had to throw increments of rupees into the fountain here in order to get the fairy's blessing. They really do make this a lot more convenient for the randomizer by just outright giving you access to them just on the field. You do need to spend rupees to get them, but it's very much worth it. You can hold a lot of bombs and arrows by doing this. So I believe the max capacity you can hold is 50 bombs and 70 arrows, which is definitely quite a lot. Alright, so that's going to be everything we need to do around Lake Hylia for the time being. So, now that we've gotten that, I think it's time that we head back to... we'll try to head back to the Eastern Palace and see how far we can get in that. So I don't know if we're going to be able to fully complete it until later, because normally in order to clear it, you do need the bow and arrow. And that's also going to be necessary for one of the other dungeons we're going to see later down the line. But for the time being, we can at least investigate this area and see what we can obtain. So by clearing this dungeon, we'll get ourselves one of the pendants that we need to access the Master Sword pedestal over in the Lost Woods. Which is going to be fairly good, because I know that we are going to receive a health upgrade by doing that. So yeah, the main name of the game when doing these randomizers is just to figure out what is going to be the most optimal path for your current equipment to make progress. I'm still thinking about things that we have access to. Now that we have the ability to swim, that opens up some stuff we can do in the Dark World. And now that we have the lantern, that also opens up some things we can do up in the mountain. So we'll definitely want to remember that. So we'll definitely be making our way up Death Mountain in a little bit. I just want to check on the Eastern Palace before we head that way, because there could be something good that we can find in here. It's going very good there, Master Starman. Just grabbed some flippers earlier, so we'll be able to swim. And yeah, things went pretty well last night. Well, yesterday when we were doing this run. Yeah, I'm very happy with how things are progressing at the moment. Yes, I believe we already took this path over here. Yes, we're gonna want to head over this way first. Over where we open the big chest. It's quite interesting getting to revisit some of these dungeons. I mean, it hasn't been too long since I last played through this game. I think I did another run of it actually a bit earlier this year. Just because I really like A Link to the Past. In fact, I really like a lot of the Zelda games. There's hardly one that I really do not like. I mean, I don't really... some of the games I've played... Yeah, I did have a few things with... both Oracle of Ages and Minish Cap, but they're certainly not bad games. There were just some things that happened during those runs of that game that left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but, you know, I always tend to be a bit open-minded, and if I get the chance to revisit those games, it would definitely be nice to get to see if I can improve my opinion on them. But, as we can see here, now that we have obtained the lantern, we are able to explore these dark rooms. It's definitely very nice for us. Yeah, it's certainly a fun time going through these randomizer runs. Definitely opens up a unique feel when going through these games compared to their original incarnations. Yeah, I was able to beat Desert Palace and the Thieves' Hideout really early in this run, which is not something you would normally do in the base game, so yeah. It's definitely been pretty interesting so far. So I'm a little worried because we're not going to be really good for dealing with some of the Igors in the future, because the red ones require the bow and arrow to defeat, and we are not going to be well equipped for dealing with those guys. So by dealing with the enemies around here, that disperses the anti-fairies, which gives us access to the boomerang. Very nice. So now that we have the boomerang, that's going to be a very nice tool for dealing with some enemies. It's not only able to stun enemies, but it's also good for taking out some of the smaller enemies like Keese. Yeah, that is definitely good. And I also believe that this is specifically the magic boomerang, which is the upgrade you get from that fairy that we were just visiting earlier. Yeah, it doesn't really get much progress, but it's still an iconic item in this series. So we can grab that over here. So now that we have the lantern, we can light these torches. Gives us a clearer view of this dark area. And we do have one key so we can access that space. But what do we have down here? That just has a room with a bunch of rupees. At this point, we only need rupees to purchase upgrades for our bombs and arrows. but it's still nice to collect these. So go ahead and do that. Sadly, I would take this opportunity to get something good from the anti-fairies, but sadly we're not able to do that just yet. We do not have the items necessary to get the good stuff from these guys. So the best we can do is just move on. Okay, luckily we don't have any red Igors at the moment. I'm a little worried because those things can be a bit of a pain when we do encounter them. But it seems like we can pop that switch there, opening the way forward. And this room, we got a bunch of cannonballs we gotta dodge while we try and find the right switch. There we go. Oh yeah, there is the red Igor. Little worried here. I think there's a button we can press. No. So it looks like we're not going to be able to complete this until we can kill this guy. Yep, we see here, unlike the green Igors, the red one is immune to the sword. We can try some of our other items, like we have the... No, Fire Rod's not going to do anything here. Can we try the hook shot? Nah, that didn't do anything. That's a good suggestion there, if pots are able to handle this thing. If we can get those to respawn. Hey, ugly. Nope. Does not work on him. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we need the bow and arrow to deal with these guys. So all of our other options... Nope, the boomerang does not work. I doubt the hammer is going to be effective here. Only other method of attack would be the bombs in the Cane of Samaria. We can try this. No. We can try a bomb. Alright, I doubt that's even going to work here, even this thing just moving around. Nope. Alright, so that was an honest attempt at this palace. We're not going to be able to complete it until we get the bow and arrow. So let's just quickly warp on out of here. One of you able to heal me? Thank you, Mr. Priest. Alright, so now that we have gone a little bit through that dungeon, not going to be able to finish that until we get the bow and arrow, so we're going to have to search somewhere else. For current equipment, I think we are pretty good to handle. There is one particular item that I do want to grab, though, now that we have access to the water. And so we're going to want to head down this way. So we're going to want to head about where the bridge can be found over by where Link's house is, if I remember this correctly. Because there is something that we are able to acquire in this area now that we can swim. Yeah, this bridge here, we want to head into the water. Should be able to easily do, not from this angle. See, some of these cliffs do bar our progress. So we can head into the water here, and just need to quickly swim all the way up here. So guess what's some stuff we can talk about while we're just going through this. So yeah, this is the third day of a 3-day period where I'm not working, so I'm definitely taking this opportunity just to relax and focus on some other stuff. What we can do down here, now that we're under the bridge, we can talk to this guy, and he gave us 50 rupees. Super. Alright, so now that we dealt with that guy, we're gonna want to head... Given our current progress, I think we are definitely good to head to the mountain now. But yeah, I've just been trying to take it easy since we have this break from work. And it's definitely been pretty with the time that I've been spending. Like, I've been doing some progress on some art that I've been meaning to do for quite a while, and I've definitely been happy with the amount of progress I've been doing there. Also, there is this little cave we never bothered checking. So this is an item store. It's good to remember for later. So funny enough, that cave in A Link Between Worlds is the site of a long-running side quest in that particular game that opens up the ability to search for these little squid guys called Mayamais. And they're one of the major collectibles that you're going to want to scour the entirety of Hyrule and Lowrule in order to get. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be really happy when we get the mirror, because that's going to make things much easier for us to explore some areas, especially with the Dark World. Alright, that leads over to the castle, which we do not need to go to yet. But yeah, besides working on some more art that I've been meaning to take care of, I've had a pretty good lunch. I got some Red Baron pizza, and that was always pretty good. Definitely quite fond of that brand of pizza. And yeah, just been mostly relaxing, watching a few streams every now and then, which there have certainly been some fun ones lately that I've been checking out. Ooh, also now that we have the lantern, that means we should be able to actually clear Hyrule Castle. But I guess we could say that for later, after we've done enough exploring around the overworld. Then we'll try heading to Hyrule Castle. Since we have the Master Sword, we have the lantern, we'll easily be able to progress through those areas. Yep, here in the path leading up to Death Mountain, there's a lot of things that we need to worry about in the dark. It's a very tricky area to navigate. It's a big old natural maze full of rock and lots of things like that. Yeah, you technically can't clear this without the lantern. I also don't want to do that, because that sounds really freaking annoying. Oh, hello, old man. So this begins a sort of mission here, where we need to escort this old man through this cave in order to get to a certain destination. It's certainly a very nice little thing we have to do, escorting this man for the mountain. And we should be just out of here now. So for this area, we need to watch out for these little lizard guys around here, as well as falling rocks. So we get a piece of heart from the old man for escorting him here. Normally he would give us a mirror, but yeah, heal me up, sir. So by doing that, he is able to heal us up, so we no longer have to worry about damage. It's definitely good. So I want to look around this area back in his home, because there can usually be some things that you can usually find around the mountain. There is a ton of stuff that we can get up here, so it's really good to check as many things as you can. This Death Mountain holds a ton of secrets. And thankfully, with our current equipment, we should be able to explore most of this area. Since we have the hook shot, we got the ability to lift really big boulders. We should easily be able to handle most of the things in this area. So we go in this passage. So that takes us to another section of Death Mountain here. This area is definitely full of a lot of stuff for us to handle. Between all these little rock guys here, the falling boulders. Yeah, there's a lot of obstacles we need to worry about. But it should be fine. There's definitely a lot of room for us to handle some things. Oh, trust me, there is a lot of chests in Death Mountain. So I'm going to head a little bit higher up here. We're not going to be able to explore the entirety of the upper section of Death Mountain because we do not have the mirror, but there's definitely quite a few things we can see around here. So we take this passage. There's definitely a lot of keys around here, which you naturally expect to find in a cave. Stop that. But yeah, in terms of what I've also been doing, so I've definitely been planning out some of the other streams that we're going to be doing in the future. And I definitely have high hopes. Okay, that's just a little shortcut back down to the lower section of the map. Don't need to worry about that. So let's just quickly head over this way. There's an area in the Dark World around this section of the map that you do want to remember for later. For now, we can just ignore this cave. Alright, let's try to head on the upper section of the mountain. There's quite a bit you can see up here, but with our current equipment, we're not going to be able to explore all of it. Because if we go over here, there's just a warp tile into the Dark World that we can access right now. But since we don't have an easy way of being able to return to the Light World from the Dark World, we're just going to ignore that. And look around this area a little bit. Because, yeah, there's quite a bit we can see. Ooh, so that's definitely useful. We got a piece of heart over there. Drop it down the floor here. This brings us over this way, where we can grab some fairies. Very good. So you can easily access that if you want to get some heals. So I like the boomerang because you can fire it in 8 directions, which is definitely very nice if you want to do some precise aiming against enemies. Definitely a good reason for that. Alright, so that dropped us off in that cave. But there's another one around the other section of this area. So this rock formation up here is actually a reoccurring area in a lot of the Zelda games. It's known as Spectacle Rock. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of different incarnations of it throughout the series. Let's go check around here and see what we can find. So we should be able to get to the other side of that one cavern we saw before. Yep, and with that we can grab another heart container. Very good. A piece of heart is held with a grumpy fish. Alright, so that's definitely some good advice for later. So that's specifically referring to a character we're not going to see until we return to the Dark World, which we will do eventually, but for now I'm just focusing on stuff in the Light World before we head back into the Dark World, just because it's going to be a bit tricky to fully explore the Dark World at this point. We've already been in that cave, so we can't explore the upper section of Death Mountain, but we can head over here. And I believe around these stones... no, just some normal rocks. If we go over here, there's this bridge that is broken. In order to get past this, you need to have the hook shot. So yeah, that's definitely very necessary if you want to explore all of Death Mountain. Now this section of the map has a ton of different caves for us to explore, and I know for a fact that there are a ton of chests we can find here, so we're definitely going to be exploring this area as much as we can. So there's a chest over there we're not going to be asking for a while. It's definitely good to remember that for later. This area also has some new enemies, Tektites, which are definitely a very common enemy throughout the Zelda series. Those guys will just jump around and try to land on you. They're really not too tough. And besides that, we got these Baris around here. Electrocute you. Definitely be careful when dealing with those guys. Definitely like to have the hook shot around here just because it's good for taking care of enemies from a distance. I have a fairy, so I'm not too worried about us being low on health. And around here, it's got this section of the floor we can drop down. So I'm not too sure about where we specifically want to drop. It takes us over here. Maybe we want to take one over... Yeah, since this layout's very similar to the area that we were just in the lower floor. So I think if we drop down here, this brings us over this way. Which also gives us some healing from some fairies. Very good. And want to be careful over there. So I'll drop us down to a lower area. Alright, so that brings us over here. So I think we might actually want to drop down one of these holes. I'm trying to think about the process of events here. We're able to just grab those fairies, and... yeah, we just came out of that cave over there, so it didn't seem like there was anything else of importance we could have grabbed. Yeah, it's definitely pretty important to investigate this area as much as you can and try to grab as many chests that you can find in this area. There's also a portal to the Dark World we can find in this section of the mountain, and that could be very useful for also investigating this area, because you'll definitely find a lot of chests if you investigate the Dark World section of Death Mountain. Alright, so over here is an area I'm very familiar with, given some of my previous runs of this area. This could be really good for us to explore. It's also going to open up a path for us higher up the mountain if we take a certain path. Alright, so we're gonna store over here. Don't really need to worry too much about healing. Alright, so that area we're not going to be able to access until we have access to another area. So it seems like we're not going to be able to investigate much further along the mountain from here. However, if we go this way, there's also a cave this way. And I think this is going to be pretty useful to us. Let's ignore the floor over there and just head up the stairs. As we go through here, this takes us all the way to the top of the mountain. Yep, believe it or not, we're already at the top of Death Mountain. So it looks like there's just some arrows on that ledge. So back in my first run of this game that I did over on Twitch, that little mountain ledge over there was where the lantern was. So that obviously was a bit of a pain. So we can just drop down from the top there. This gives us a good indication of some things we can find in this area. Want to be a little careful as we're dealing with some things here. Let's try dropping down here and see what happens. Oh, that will bring us over here. Very good, very good. So now we can bomb this wall. And this takes us into a room with 2 chests. That's good. So that is a piece of heart and the bow and arrow. There it is. Finally. So now that we have the bow, we can go back to the Eastern Palace and deal with the boss there. So we will definitely want to do that later. For now, let's head on this way. Oh boy, this room. So this room, I remember, was where we obtained both the mirror and the moon pearl in the first run I did here. So this is really good. Really good indeed. So we can hit that with a boomerang, so we can obtain a shield, which I already have, so not even very good. We can grab some bombs, another piece of heart, and another piece of heart. Okay, that wasn't as useful as the first time I came to this area, but, you know, still very nice. We got some good stuff up here at the mountain. Alright, so let us head to the... not this way. There should be some stuff we can do in the upper section of the mountain, now that we have access to some of the tools that we currently have. So we should be able to do quite a bit up here. Okay, so there's definitely going to be a lot that we can see here in the upper section of Death Mountain. Namely, if we go over here, once you have the Titan's Mitt, you can lift up this rock over here, granting us access to this little area. So we got these pegs over here that you need to hit in a correct order to be able to access what's over here. Which is definitely something we'll want to open up, because that will be pretty useful to us later on. So we'll say with our current equipment, we might be able to go through this area, but it's also going to be pretty tricky with our current health. Because that is actually the entrance to the second to last dungeon of the game. But yeah, it is gonna be very tricky for us to do this with our current equipment. Alright, so it seems like we need to hit... Yeah, this area is very tricky to do at this stage, since we don't have a lot of parts or equipment. So I'm going to save this for later. By hitting the pegs in the correct order, that opens up a portal to the Dark World. We're not going to take that just yet, but that will be important to us for later. You get out of here. We can see a couple more caves around here that we can access. Definitely want to try going in one of those in a bit. However, we can now bring down those pegs, granting us access to the upper section of Death Mountain. It's actually the area that we would have been able to access had we had the mirror, but we don't, so we had to take the long way around to get here. And that also opens up a new dungeon we can do, so yeah, we'll be able to clear up all of the Light World dungeons very quickly here today. Just gonna go ahead and use our Book of Medora, and that will give us a fairy in a bottle. Alright, so that gives us a new bottle that we can use. It could be worth it to get rid of the fairy and replace that with a potion, since typically I prefer to have my my bottles mostly filled with potions, so that I can then... what am I trying to say here? Want to grab the potions, so that we at least have one of those for later. So, yeah, I like to have mostly potions, and then have one that is just a fairy, which is good for security purposes. So we're able to grab the big key here, like, really quickly. There's no trouble at all for us there. But yeah, the main gimmick here of the Tower of Hera, besides it being a bunch of floors that we need to do a bit of climbing to get here, sweet corn on pizza is a great choice. I wouldn't know that from personal experience, but you do you, sir. Oh, I know, right? That's another different rule set you can do with the randomizer challenge, but luckily we don't have to worry about that here. So we got these things called hard hat beetles here. And thankfully with our current sword, we're able to just kill them instantly. So these guys, you're normally supposed to try and bump them into the pits in order to deal with them. But thankfully, we don't really need to worry about that because we can just instantly kill them with our sword. This area want to be really tricky. So those star panels there will actually change the position of the pits. So you want to remember that as you're going through here. So one of the main gimmicks with the Tower of Hera is this place is very vertical. And you can fall down the holes in the floor in order to fall back down to the lower levels. So it's obviously a little tricky for going through this area. Especially under a few circumstances. You're able to grab that over there. And I don't know if we can do this now, but we can, whoop, zip right on over now that we have the hook shot. And we grab the compass. So normally that chest would contain the Moon Pearl, which is important to be able to access things in the Dark World outside of your vulnerable state. So that is easily something that I recommend picking up if you're playing a vanilla run of A Link to the Past. Here, we don't need to worry too much about that. So these enemies always reminded me of the Dino Torch enemies from Super Mario World, which is another game that I obviously really enjoy. So I also play that over on my Twitch channel, and I would definitely like to upload the VODs to that sometime in the future. But currently I'm in the process of re-uploading my playthrough of Hamtaro Ham Hams Unite. So we'll definitely want to hop over into Mario World sometime soon. But with that said, we are already at the boss of the Tower of Hera, Moldorm. This guy is probably the most infamous boss in all of A Link to the Past. This guy is nasty. His only weak point is his tail. And if he bumps you over the edge... Oh my god, how did I survive that? If he bumps you over the edge, you will fall down to the lower level, and Moldorm will completely regain his health. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry about that, because we somehow managed to survive that. My god, that was amazing. Normally that boss gives you so much trouble, but thankfully I had the level 3 sword, so we were able to kill in just 3 hits. Very good. But by beating that guy, he also dropped a key, which we're going to need in order to access the lower level of the tower, which will probably have something for us. Alright, so for this room, we need to deal with some floating tiles. Just gonna wait them out for a bit. So, what's some stuff that we can talk about? Well, kind of relevant to the series we're currently playing, so I've definitely been enjoying a lot of Chugga Conroy's playthrough of The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. It's definitely been a very enjoyable experience, getting to vicariously revisit that game through his Let's Play. Especially with a lot of the recent developments he's done in that adventure. So, I'm very excited for when he gets to resuming that particular game, because at the moment he's been dealing with a lot of dental issues, which, oh man, I can relate in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'm hoping that things go pretty smoothly for him so they can get back to videos, just because I love the guy and really love his videos. Besides that, I've also been watching, pretty recently they uploaded a video from one of their previous, ooh, that is good. So that is the Ice Rod. It's the counterpart to the Fire Rod in that it shoots ice instead of fire, being able to instantly freeze enemies in their place. And that item is the key to beating the boss of Turtle Rock. So that is very good that this is the item that we were able to get here. So yeah, definitely very well worth it to come to the Tower of Hera. And now that we have the bow, we have everything we need to clear out. I know there's a crystal around here. Where are you? Probably gonna have to access the crystal down here. That's fine. So we got the tiles we have to worry about, but we can just quickly get out of here. Ow. So yeah, we're gonna clear up all the dungeons in the light world in this session. I am quite happy about that. Managed to make some really good progress today. Which obviously has me excited. So I love this game so much, and getting through it with this challenge again, it's definitely been a blast. Okay, so the easiest way we're gonna get down from the mountain is obviously to save and quit. We've done this plenty of times already. And now that we have helped the old man up the mountain, we now have the mountain cave as a potential warp point. So that's definitely good to remember for later. But yeah, we're not going to be able to fully explore some of the things up the mountain until we get the mirror. And at this point, I still don't have a good idea on where that thing could be. We cleared out a good chunk of all of the things we can do in the light world, which is definitely pretty nice of me to say. But there's still a lot of hidden things that we haven't obtained yet. Like, we still need the boots in order to be able to access some stuff here. But yeah, we got pretty much all the important items we need to complete the dungeons in this area. So, yeah, we'll just head on over to the Eastern Palace and clear that up now that we have everything we need. And I'm also quite happy because this means we'll be able to clear some other Dark World dungeons. Yeah, this is definitely very nice. I'm enjoying the progress we're making here. Also be a good idea to clear up Hyrule Castle, since with our current equipment, we should easily be able to handle some of the stuff around there. But yeah, the bow and arrow obviously is a very good ranged weapon. Definitely useful for taking care of enemies. However, it does expend arrows, so you want to make sure you have plenty of them before going into certain areas that are going to require them. Luckily, you can get them as drops from pots as well as grass, so it's not too hard to replenish your stock of arrows. Yeah, we'll just head on over back to the end of this dungeon. So kind of thinking about some other stuff that's been going on. I'm really excited to get back to playing the Shantae games, as I've obviously uploaded my playthrough of Risky's Revenge over on YouTube. And I've definitely been meaning to return to Pirate's Revenge. I mean, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, since that was the next game in the series that I was planning to play back on Twitch. However, the first session I did for that didn't really go well due to poor internet connection, so I held off on that for a couple of years. Oh yeah, I definitely recommend Seven Sirens. I really enjoyed that game. Obviously, besides the gameplay, I just really love the characters and humor within the Shantae games. It's definitely a lot of good reasons to pick up that series. It's just a fun time all around. Yep, now that we have the bow and arrow, we can finally complete this area. So it's kind of funny, back in my first playthrough of this game, one of the things that I was lacking pretty early on, well, one of the things I got really early on that I haven't acquired yet is I haven't obtained the upgrade to the arrows, which is the silver arrows, which are required to beat the game. But yeah, we are definitely going to need to find those wherever they are. They could be anywhere throughout the land of Hyrule, so it's going to be quite tricky to try and find those things, because you do need the silver arrows to defeat Ganon. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do to try and find that. yep, now that we have the bow, that is the one item we need to kill the red Igor. It takes 2 hits to deal with them, but yeah, not too bad all things considered. But yeah, in terms of some other stuff that's happened recently, the channel I follow has recently posted they were doing a run of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond recently, and they just uploaded their rematch against the champion in that game. I haven't checked it out yet, but you know, it's probably going to be an interesting time, given their previous experience with that game. But yeah, this is the boss of the Eastern Palace. These are the Armos Knights. Try to attack these guys with your sword. It's going to take a while to kill them. So what you're supposed to do is use the bow, as this will deal more damage to these guys. And it's funny enough, if you have the silver arrows, you can just one-shot them with an attack with the silver arrows. So that was really good for handling these guys. But yeah, not too much trouble here. Just need to slash at them or shoot them with your arrows, and you're good. When there's only one knight remaining, then he will try to jump at you. So this guy was also a pretty iconic mid-boss in Link's Awakening, as it was guarding one of the keys to one of the dungeons, and it was also guarding one of the big lore drops in that game. But yeah, with that, we managed to dispatch the Armos Knights. And got ourselves a pendant. So with that, we have managed to clear all of the dungeons in the Light World. Oh, very nice. So we got the blue pendant. So we're not going to be able to obtain the green pendant until I believe we do Skullwoods, which is going to be necessary if we're going to get one of the items from Sahasrara, as he is currently hiding out here by the Eastern Palace, and he's not going to give us anything until we get the green pendant, which is normally what you would get by clearing the Eastern Palace. So yeah, we definitely got a ways to go to do that. But hey, we got one pendant, we got free crystals. We're making some good progress here. Okay, so next thing I want to do with our current equipment, I think it is a good time to go to Hyrule Castle and see about defeating Ganon, as doing that will also unlock some pretty useful things to us in this journey. Yeah, we got a very good selection of items. Like, the first item we really picked up that was important to us was the Fire Rod. And that was also our main method of attack for a good portion of the early game, which definitely made things interesting when we were trying to escort Zelda out of the dungeon. But yep, we are pretty much good to storm the castle now that we have access to a bunch of stuff here. Oh yeah, that really sucks when you're in a position where you need one item to be able to clear a bunch of stuff, and for the life of you, you can't find it. That was definitely me for a good portion of my Twitch run of this game, since it took a while for me to find where the lantern was, and that was necessary for so many things in this adventure. But yep, we're back here in Hyrule Castle, because we are going to take the fight to Ganon, the sorcerer that set all of this conflict in motion. Now, the story for the raid on Hyrule Castle in the vanilla game, so you need the Master Sword to be able to access the higher levels of the castle. When you grab the Master Sword after beating the dungeons in order to get over here, so we got some more ball and chain guys that we got to deal with here. Thankfully, we got a lot of good gear for handling these guys. So you need to get the pendants from the Light World dungeons in order to be able to access the Master Sword, which is held in the Lost Woods. After you grab the Master Sword, you receive a message from Zelda that Aghanim's forces have managed to locate her at the Sanctuary and asks for your help. And when you go there, the priest of the Sanctuary uses his dying breath to tell you that Zelda's been taken to the castle, and that you need to go and rescue her before the sorcerer completes his ritual, which would open a large gateway into the Dark World at the entrance of Hyrule Castle. So you go and do that, and this is where things around the plot really start to amp up. So around this point in the main game, Aghanim has managed to see Zelda and is beginning the ritual that would bind the light and dark worlds together, giving him free reign to unleash the horrors within the dark world upon the light world. And there's a bunch of other details involving this adventure that you would naturally learn about later on. Like, you learn from a lot of other sources that the main source of Aghanim's power is an evil villain known as Ganon, who was previously established back in the very first Legend of Zelda game. But again, this game kind of serves as like a soft reboot for the franchise at that time. So you can definitely see this game kind of as being the introduction of all of that stuff involving Ganon and whatnot. So the lore with this story is that Ganon was once a man from a tribe known as the Gerudo, and that Ganon was previously a man called Ganondorf Dragmire. However, by accessing the Sacred Realm, which was what the Dark World used to be, Ganondorf was able to obtain the power of the Triforce, which holds the power of the gods in it, and is able to transform the wishes of its user into reality. And because of the darkness in Ganondorf's heart, it distorted the Sacred Realm into a world of darkness. And Ganon, in order to reflect the darkness in his heart, was forever transformed into the massive pig demon that we all know him as. Sweet corn on pizza's a great choice. Do we really need to know that now of all times, game? A little busy here with the fate of the kingdom in our hands. But yeah, it's quite interesting with the amount of lore that they have in this game in order to expand upon the story that they had in the first Legend of Zelda. Because let's be honest, there was barely any story in the first Zelda game, and I am very thankful that they really went and put so much effort into trying to make things a lot more complex with this game's storyline. It's definitely pretty nice. I do have a lot of nostalgic memories with the first Zelda game, but my god, it is very archaic by today's standards, and I don't really see myself playing through it again anytime soon. But yeah, still a very fun game to visit if you want to see the early days of this franchise, which obviously I have a lot of nostalgic attachment to those early Zelda games. Even if I didn't necessarily play through all of them. Like, I didn't play the first Zelda game until I got my Nintendo Wii and was able to access the games on the Wii shop. But with that said, we are finally at the end of the trials here. Hey Aghanim, hey Zelda, what you guys doing? Oh, that's not good. So yep, Zelda has been taken by the Dark Wizard and sacrificed as part of the ritual to open up the path to the Dark World. And the various crystals we've been collecting throughout the game actually contain the spirits of the maidens that Aghanim has been sacrificing. And Zelda is among one of the spirits that we are tasked with saving. So yep, that gives us some more motivation to seek out the different Dark World dungeons. But here we got ourselves the battle against the sorcerer for himself. And for this battle, one equipped the most powerful weapon in the game, the Bug Net. believe it or not, this thing can reflect the wizard's magic spells back into him. So for this fight, you just want to try and repel the wizard's spells back into him. There is no way that you can attack him with the sword. It is pointless. When you see him go into the middle of the room like that, you want to get out of the way because it'll try and shoot lightning at you. But yeah, just keep hurling his spells back at him, and you should be good. Also, kind of fun just seeing this guy's sprites now, because I remember this one meme image that was kind of talking about this guy's sprite. So he's supposed to be a man with a sort of Middle Eastern and headdress on him, covering most of his face. But people pointed out that the way his sprite looks, he kind of looks like a guy with a green bowl cut, and I always found that kind of amusing. Yeah, it's funny the way that a lot of people interpret these old sprite-based games from time to time. Like, there are certainly some aspects of older games that I also misinterpreted a few ways. So we should have this guy on the ropes here. We've done a lot of damage to the wizard. There we go! With our trusty butterfly net, we dealt the finishing blow. And we get warped to the Dark World. So yep, our mission now is to scour the various dungeons of the Dark World, find all the crystals, and open the way to the final dungeon. To beat Ganon, you must collect 7 crystals and defeat his minion at the top of his tower. Yeah, we got a lot of work cut out for us here. So this pyramid here is the main site of Ganon's activities here. Well, somewhat. This area will be important to us at the end of the game, but there's not too much we need to worry about here. We can grab a heart container over here. He's like, oh yeah, I'm well acquainted with Link's pink hair. But yeah, from here on out, we're gonna mostly be exploring the Dark World. Because, yeah, we don't really have an easy way of getting back into the Light World, save for resetting the game. We got a lot of different enemies we can find here in the Dark World, too. Look, we had those pig-headed guys. These are called moblins. They will throw their javelins at you from a distance, so you gotta watch out for those. And then we also have the big Cyclops enemies. They're called Hinoxes, and they will throw bombs at you. So definitely want to be careful about those explosive weapons. But yeah, here in the Dark World, we have a lot that we're able to do here. And with our current equipment, we should be able to handle most of the stuff we can do here, which will certainly be nice. Again, we are going to need to keep searching around to see if we can find the mirror, because that's going to be required to access a lot of things in the Dark World. But for the most part, we should have a decent time going through things here. The Dark World, obviously, is a dark reflection of the Light World. So there are many things you may notice throughout here that are very similar to landmarks that you can find in the Light World. So definitely pay attention to that, and you should be able to navigate your way for this area. And find all of the delicious secrets here. I would buy a potion, but we have a fairy, so we're just gonna save that. So I'm quite happy that we now have over 10 hearts. That's definitely gonna increase our survivability here, considering that the enemies in the Dark World, they hurt a lot. These guys are really tough if you're not prepared for them. So they can do a lot of damage. So that little guy over there is basically the Dark World version of a Octorok. Have you met Woeful Ike? Who? I don't know who this Woeful Ike is, but maybe we'll see him. And perhaps we can put him on a Path of Radiance. Alright, so this area is going to be pretty nice for us. Toss rocks, toss items, toss cookies. So what we want to do here is take an item and throw it into that ring of stones there. as this will disturb a catfish. Normally this guy would give you the Quake Medallion. However, in this case, he gave us a piece of heart. Now, there isn't a Dark World equivalent to Zora's Domain here, although there are these Dark Zoras that have only one eye. Quite interesting that we never really saw these guys appear in any games that are associated with Zoras. I feel like having an evil tribe of Zoras that are at war with the Light World version of them would be quite interesting. I mean, we kind of saw something with different tribes of Zoras having a conflict among them in Echoes of Wisdom, but thankfully that wasn't too severe of a conflict. Oh yeah, I'm really excited for GameCube games being released on the Switch 2. It's gonna be so fun. Like, I'm really gonna have a good time revisiting a lot of those games from that era. Because there are quite a few that I was able to play back in the day despite not having a GameCube myself. And of course, I am in possession of a few GameCube games. Most notably, I have Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, Pokemon Colosseum, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. And those were definitely some very good investments. I got them at a pretty good price back in the day, so it's obviously very good for me. Oh yeah, I'm definitely happy to be in a point where we're gonna have GameCube games that are much more accessible and that you don't have to worry about spending an arm and a leg in order to get them. Because yeah, we really don't need that. God, $300 for Xenosaga, that is something. I mean, I've always wanted to play the Xenosaga games, especially because I've been so into Xenoblade the last couple of years. Like, at this point, I've played all the Xenoblade games, and just this last year, I was able to get through Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. So, that's certainly something. But yeah, definitely do want to play through the Xenosaga games at some point in the future, because I feel like that would be an interesting time, getting to see a little bit of that history there. Yeah, I am not looking forward to the prices on those games. But who knows, we may see a re-release of those, or remake sometime in the future. So over here we got ourselves the Dark World counterpart to the Eastern Palace. This is known as the Dark Palace. Now obviously this area is going to be quite interesting. It's our first real taste of what the Dark World dungeons would be like. Though, of course, we've already been through one of the Dark World dungeons, so we don't need to worry too much about that. Did you know? A tree typically has many secondary branches supported clear of the ground by the trunk. This trunk typically contains woody tissue for strength and vascular tissue to carry materials from one part of the tree to another. Yeah, we got this guy over here who's just a talking tree. As I said before, the Dark World will change your appearance to reflect what's in your heart. So I guess that guy just really likes trees, and so he was turned into a tree. So yeah, we should be able to handle most of the Dark Palace here. So the main item you need to finish this area is the hammer. So luckily we have that, so we should be able to get through this area pretty easily. Now this area is a big maze you need to go through. And if you're playing through A Link Between Worlds, the area by the Dark Palace is going to give you a stealth mission that you have to go through. So that's definitely something. Want to maneuver away for this maze, and then we meet a monkey. This monkey is known as Kiki. Yeah, it's been a recurring trend throughout the Zelda games to have helpful monkeys that would assist you in your adventure. And who knows, we may be playing another Zelda game sometime this year that features a monkey in it. I don't know, I got a lot of plans for things we're going to be doing. We get Kiki will open the path to the Dark Palace for us. So now this gives us another dungeon we can explore. And yeah, compared to how things were back in the Light World, the Dark World dungeons are a lot larger and more complex. So we have a lot that we need to go through here. There's tons of areas for us to explore, and there should be a lot of goodies that we can find in here. There's going to be a lot of chests we can access, like this one that has a key. Very good. So we're going to need a lot of keys to get through this area, obviously. So we're just doing a couple of the dungeons around here. What's some other stuff we can talk about? So this past month, since we got the Switch 2 coming out very soon, I figured that I would spend a good deal of my time this month playing through Genshin Impact again. It's because I wanted to make some more progress in that game. Especially with some of the recent updates that came out for it that added a ton of new areas and some more characters. And yeah, it's definitely been a fun time going through this game again after so long. Like a few days ago, I managed to finally start going through Inazuma, which was like the first major area that they added to the game after its initial release. The fire rod held by someone friendly. Yeah, I tried the fire rod from my uncle's cold, dead hands. Thanks for reminding me. But yeah, finally started playing through the Inazuma portion of the game, and I've been having a good time with that. So yeah, I've mostly been spending my time this month trying to focus on doing some things around the Sumeru region, which is an area out of one of the earlier updates, like it was the area immediately after Inazuma. Yeah, I've just been spending some time exploring that this month instead of going to the area you're supposed to go to next in the plot. But I was having a really good time going through Sumeru the last couple of weeks. It's an amazing area. I just really love the aesthetic of this area. How you got one half of the region is this very lush jungle condensed with so much stuff you can do. Ooh, we got the boss key there. Very nice. And then we got the other half of Sumeru, which is covered in just this wide, inhospitable desert that's just full of ruins to explore. God, it was such an amazing area to get to explore. And I may have gone through things out of order, but I'm actually quite pleased I was able to do that, because it gave me opportunities to level up a lot of the areas that... Well, it gave me the opportunity to level up a bunch of characters that I managed to wish that require going to Sumeru in order to pick up their collectibles to level them up. So it was definitely fun gathering a bunch of the stuff we needed there. In terms of other things we were able to do, there were definitely quite a lot of storylines we also completed. Like, there was one we were helping these little plant people who are kind of like the Genshin Impact equivalent of the Koroks from the Legend of Zelda games. Alright, if I remember correctly, we want to ignore this path for now, because that'll lead us to something good later on. So this area definitely has a lot of things for us. Got more of these hard hat beetles to deal with. The red ones require so many hits to take out. Recommended that you try to knock those into pits in order to deal with them. So we're going to need to grab that chest over there. Then we have that crystal that we need to hit. This area is definitely a very big maze. So it's going to take a while for us to go through everything we can here. We can blow open that floor, granting us access to this area up here. And that has a door we can open. Very good. So that will take us over to this chest. Very nice. Oh, there we go! We got the Pegasus boots, which are going to be nice for accessing some other things in this adventure. So those are definitely going to be helpful to us. Pegasus boots, besides just making us very fast, will open up some very useful things to us in our journey. So we can hit that switch to grab that key. And I got some more of these guys to deal with. Sorry, I don't want head, which seems very out of character for me, but, you know. And that warps us back here. So this is a room that we previously accessed before, thanks to these warp points. And this gives us access back to this area. Also, little dinosaur guys, those are called Helmosaurs. They're kind of the main enemy you're going to be encountering here in this dungeon. Normally they're tricky to deal with because their heads are armored, and that protects them from your sword. But you're able to deal with them a bit easier later on. And then we also got these turtle enemies. They have those big hard shells that prevent them from being attacked. However, you're able to deal with them pretty handily if you have the hammer, which you wouldn't get until much later on in this dungeon. Thankfully, this is a randomizer, so I don't have to worry about that. Alright, so now at this point, once we knock these beetles out of the way, so to do this part, so we need to throw a bomb in order to hit this crystal. And then we want to quickly rush over here, so that opens up the path this way for us. Very good. So now we can access this path up here, which is going to have a lot of things for us to take care of. Let's equip our hook shot here, so we can stun that guy and just take him out with ease. And I think we have the big key now, so we should be able to access... Yep, we can go over here. And we should be able to grab whatever's in the big chest over this way. So again, this dungeon has a lot of dark areas, so you're going to want to have the lantern if you want to fully explore this place. There's the map, giving us full coverage over the areas we can explore here in this dungeon, which is going to be very nice for us. Want to explore as much of this place as we can. Pretty much all of the Dark World dungeons are going to have a lot of chests for you to open, so they are prime areas to go searching for what you need in order to finish your adventure. By opening up that pathway, that gives us a big chest containing a heart container. Very good. Alright, so at this point we got ourselves a heart container, we got a piece of heart. So I think we got most of the items we're going to need in here. So I think it's time that we get started on making our way fully out of this place. Which shouldn't be too hard for us to take care of, since we have all of the items we need to clear this dungeon. But yeah, like I was saying before with Genshin, really enjoyed the Sumeru area, because that's probably easily my favorite area of the game. Like, I like a lot of the early areas. Like, from the first release of the game, they had Mondstadt and Liyue as areas to explore, and for the most part, those areas were pretty nice. I probably enjoyed Liyue more than Mondstadt, just aesthetically, and also with all the stuff that happens there with the various storylines and the culture there. I mean, it's pretty interesting that Mondstadt very much has a lot of inspiration from European countries, whereas Liyue is more inspired by China in terms of its aesthetics and mythology and lore. And then we have Inazuma, the area that I am just now exploring, which is obviously based on Japan, which you can see from its overall aesthetics as well as the culture in that area. I definitely really love the Japanese aesthetic that Inazuma has. It's such a gorgeous area. And Sumeru, with its various environments, I feel like Sumeru is a mix between the Amazon and Egypt. Just between its two areas, how one is a jungle and the other is a desert. And it's quite interesting seeing that combination with its areas. It's definitely a very distinct section of the world because of the different aesthetics it has. But I really like the balance of having these two areas that very much contrast each other based on their overall aesthetic, but they're still very closely connected to each other. Also, a lot of the storylines that they had in Sumeru was pretty interesting. Like, you're helping out these plant creatures try to dispel this evil force that's been withering a good portion of the jungle. And I really enjoyed a lot of the storylines we had there. It was definitely a fun time. At this part, we have to carefully get past this blade trap. Then we shoot that Igor statue in order to open the path forward. Ah, very good. So now that we've opened up that path, we can take the stairs down to this lower level. And we should be right on our way to the boss of this area. It's kind of interesting seeing the progress we're making here, because I remember in my older playthrough of this, back on Twitch, I couldn't make a lot of progress in a lot of areas until after I managed to obtain some fire sources, which obviously required both the fire rod and the lantern. The lantern I couldn't get until I was exploring the upper regions of Death Mountain, which obviously required a bunch of stuff like the hookshot in order to get to. And then I also needed the fire rod, which, believe it or not, was inside of Turtle Rock, if I remember correctly. So yeah, that definitely was quite interesting for the amount of areas that I had to explore at that point. But we've been having a pretty good run so far. So we take that portal there, and that should bring us all the way to the end. There's one final path here, and then we can face the boss. Ow! Stop that, stupid turtle. Alright, time for the boss of the Dark Palace. Meet the Helmasaur King! I just love this guy with a big imposing sprite here. It is a very cool design for a boss. So for this guy, what you want to do is use your hammer to break his helmet. He will attack by spinning fireballs from his mouth and by whipping at you with his tail. So definitely want to keep that in mind when you're fighting this guy. It's not too bad, all things considered. Once you manage to break off the helmet, just slash at his head and you're good. Alright, that wasn't too bad of a run of the Dark Palace, all things considered. And we just grab bombs. Plus we got a pendant. Very nice. Alright, with our current equipment, I'm thinking about where we could go next. And just considering the amount of dungeons that we have left here, now, the next area we would probably want to go is to the Swamp Palace, which is in the bottom middle of the map. However, I'm thinking we could actually try and tackle Skullwoods with our current equipment. Yeah, we have the fire rod, so we should be able to do most of the stuff we can do in Skullwoods. So what I want to do is try to get all the pendants, so that in the next session, we can try to obtain the... obtain all the goodies that we can obtain over at the Master Sword's pedestal. So that's obviously going to be something we'll want to do, since I know that we're going to get added health by doing that. So yep, I think that going to Skullwoods will be a good idea for us. With our current health, we also shouldn't have too much trouble there. But definitely one of the things to worry about in Skullwoods is one of the major hazards in that area. But we should have a decent time going through things here. Alright, so now the question remains of how we're going to get over there. Okay, I believe that there's a fairy fountain over here. Just want to quickly heal up. Also forgot to mention it, but among the enemies here in the Dark World, some of the enemies around here, I really like these Minotaur guys. They don't really appear a lot in the Zelda series, but I just like their aesthetic. I like Minotaurs, what can I say? So now that we have access to the hammer, we can use that to knock down these pegs, and this is about the point where you would be able to access the Swamp Palace down to the south. But we're just going to ignore that entirely, because we're not even going to be able to do Swamp Palace until we get the mirror. Because in order to fully open up that dungeon, we do need to trigger some things in the Light World, and then quickly return to the Dark World for that. So yeah, not much we can do about that for the time being. There's also some stuff we could do around Lake Hylia that we could get some items, but I'm not too worried about that right now. For now, let's just focus on clearing up Skullwoods. That's going to have a lot of stuff for us that we should be able to grab. And also good for knocking out another boss encounter off our list. Alright, definitely going to appreciate that heal there. Get ourselves back up to full. I believe we've done everything we need to worry about in the Village of Outcasts. So we just need to make our way up here, and this should present us the path over to Skullwoods. Now, there are a few different ways to access the Skullwoods map, and one of them is going to be the path that actually leads into the dungeon here. Now, Skullwoods is fairly interesting because the overworld is also part of the dungeon. In order to access this place, you can enter it through a lot of different pathways, and just finding the right path in order to access the different sections of this area is going to be pretty important to you. So yeah, it's pretty interesting trying to find the different areas around Skullwoods to be able to do everything you can here. This area is also pretty interesting in some of the Let's Plays and streams I've also seen the last couple of years. Like, I remember Emil back in the Runaway Guys playthrough of this game had a really difficult time going through this place. And from what I recall, Masayanella also had a lot of trouble here. Like, if I remember correctly, she didn't even manage to beat the boss of this dungeon. She basically rage quit after having such a negative time with this place, which, to be fair, this place can be really overwhelming your first time. Especially with the amount of enemies we can find here. So this place is home to Gibdos, which are these large mummy enemies. They're pretty slow, but you want to watch out for them, because they hurt a lot. And then there's the other enemy that we can find here. That is the Wall Master. It's a giant zombified hand that will drop down for the ceiling and try and grab you. If the Wall Master succeeds in grabbing you, then it will warp you to the last dungeon entrance you managed to get to. So yeah, that thing is a pain. Definitely one of the more infamous enemies that we can find here in A Link to the Past. This thing is really nasty. You do not want them to grab you, because that will just reset a bunch of your progress in this area. So yeah, when dealing with the enemies around here, I recommend the Fire Rod, as it's really good for dealing with the Gyptos. You also need to be careful to watch your magic. Luckily, there are a ton of potions that you can grab in order to heal up your magic in this area. So definitely remember that as you're going through here. So you can kill the Wall Masters, but I don't really recommend it, just because they respawn really quickly after you manage to kill them. So yeah, just don't bother doing that. It's not worth it. Luckily, you don't need to worry about Wall Masters in most of this dungeon, as they're only in select floors. So if you manage to progress here a certain way, you shouldn't have to worry too much about them. Now for this area, faintly recall that the hookshot could be useful here, but yeah, we're going to need to drop down from another entrance in order to try and access the area with a big chest. So I think we need to leave that skull area and drop down from here. Yep, that opens the path over this way. So now we can blast open this wall. And that will open up the path that we need here. Okay, so we're going to need to trigger these star platforms here to change the layout of the floor. We can use that to pull open this switch, opening up the path to the big chest. Nope, we need the big key in order to get this. Right, so we need to find that first. Alright, it's probably going to take a little while to find it. So normally the Skull Woods is where you would find the Fire Rod, which is necessary for accessing most of the stuff in this area. So, yeah. Accessing everything in this place is going to be pretty tricky if you don't have all of the necessary pieces. We should be able to just leave this area, though. So we need to find a new entrance to try and access another section of the map. Luckily, we should be able to just by going over here. Yeah, it is pretty interesting how this area requires you to access the dungeon through a lot of different entrances. And I do like incorporating both the overworld and the main dungeon as part of the exploration in this place. It's certainly a very cool concept. It's just the execution of this area, especially with the Wall Masters, that makes it a little tricky. But it's not too bad, all things considered. I want the Wall Master to fall there. So what we want to do is we need to get this statue. We need to push you over here. So we're able to pull it as well. So we need to position this so that we can pull it onto this switch. And trying to do this while also dealing with Wall Masters is really nasty. Yeah, we are able to go into here now, and whoo! Narrowly dodge that guy. Such a jerk. I don't like you. We can grab this chest containing small key. It's still going to be a little while before we can get the big key and fully complete this area. But we should be pretty good. Also, I see a cracked wall over here. Does that have anything good for us? So that has one room. So that's just an area to replenish your magic, which is useful since the Fire Rod is necessary to complete this area. So it's obviously very important to keep that in mind in this place. Definitely be sure to make sure you have plenty of magic when going through this area. Otherwise, it can be really tricky. However, we should still be able to finish up the dungeon, even if we don't have the big key. Who knows, we might have to defeat the boss in order to get the big key to drop. But we'll definitely see if we can get that to happen. Alright, got ourselves some bombs there. And if we look around this area, I think there's a point that we can drop down. Yeah. And drop down this pit over here, which brings us over here. It's another section of the map we haven't been to before. And we got grabbed. It's okay, we just dropped down, so that's not too bad. So what we need to do is access one of these stars there in order to open up a path we can take over here. So now this will bring us to this door, and I forget if this has anything useful to us, or if it's just an area where the floor is gonna break. Yeah, I doubt this is gonna be anything important to us. It seems mostly like an area to refill our supplies, which at this point isn't gonna be too useful to us. Sadly, we don't have the ability to jump. That's not until the next game. So we're just gonna leave that be. Or we could just enter an exit to cause that to refresh. Nope, that also made the floor reset. Never mind. Okay. At this point, I'm thinking that we should be able to take on the boss of this area. If we don't have the boss key yet, we might be able to do this. So now what we need to do to go forward, we got this big skull with like this big bug here. All you gotta do is use the fire rod, and that opens the path into the big skull. And this will open the pathway over to where the big boss is gonna be. And what we need to do first is we need to go down here, and there should be a maze down here that will lead us where we need to go. It's quite tricky to try and figure out the correct path through here. You got these fireballs that are obviously going to give you trouble. But if you take the correct path, you should be able to get to where the chest is. We just completely ignore the enemies over there by taking this path. Let's get... stupid Gibdos. At least we have a fairy. We have 2 fairies, in fact, so we should be easily prepared for what's to come. Let's grab this chest, which has the map. Okay. Nothing really necessary for us. But, you know... just having that, I guess, is also good. Even if it's not going to help us out too much with our current situation. Alright, so now we can take the path forward. Luckily, we don't need to worry about the big key just yet. This area want to be a bit tricky. There's a certain path you need to take here using the star panels. You also need to be careful about the wall master that will appear here. I want to try and get this fairy. Alright, so now that we have you, that's going to give us an easy way to heal here. Alright, now this room's going to be a bit tricky. So we got tons of these Gibdos we got to deal with. And in order to go forward, we need to light all these torches. So we're going to want to kill all the Gibdos here to make things a bit easier for us to navigate this area. And then, of course, we got to watch out for the falling hands. It's kind of interesting how much of a pain the Wall Masters have been throughout the Zelda series, and then eventually Ocarina of Time would base an entire boss off of the Wall Masters. I find that quite interesting with the progression of the series over the years. Alright, do not be a pain here. Just want to be really careful, because getting grabbed by the hands will just completely reset our progress. And we'll have to try to get back over to the boss the long way again. Alright, for this room, all you need to do is hit that. So we need to grab a key that's hidden here. It's either hidden under a rock or being held by an enemy. So we kill that guy, we get the key, and then this opens up the path to the boss. Finally, we made it here. Grab the stuff we need. So recommend having either the arrows or the fire rod for this. Let's go down. It's time for the boss of Skull Woods, Mothula. It is a giant moth. And this thing can be quite nasty if you're not prepared. So not only do we have this thing flying around, it shoots beams at us, but the floor is moving, there are spikes along the walls, and the spikes will move around the floor too. This is a very busy boss fight with a lot going on. Yeah, this can definitely be one of the tougher bosses in the game if you're not prepared. Luckily, I have another fairy. We're safe. We're safe. But after this, we're definitely going to want to equip our blue potion just in case. Or we can just kill him in one more head. Woo! Very nice. So by doing that, that drops the compass. Alright, that leaves me wondering what exactly was in the big chest. I think there are some situations where if you don't need the big key to access the boss, then the game has a chance of spawning the boss key inside of the big chest. So with that, I feel that we are pretty much done with what we needed to do at the... That should be everything we need to do in Skull Woods. Alright, so that went pretty well. Managed to clear up a bunch of dungeons there. Managed to get ourselves a bunch of new equipment to open up some new pathways for us. So I actually think that we're going to call things here for that session. Oh man, this was a good one. Managed to clear some more dungeons, managed to get all the pendants, got a bunch more items. This has been a very fun session. So yep, definitely going to be excited to play some more of this game. So we're not going to be doing another session tomorrow. No, we're not doing 3 sessions in a row. But we should be jumping back into this game, I believe, Monday. I got a good amount of days off next week, so we should have plenty of time to resume our playthrough of this particular game. And should also give me some ample time to prepare for some of the later streams that I plan to do later this year. So, thank you for joining me in this session of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past Randomizer. Next time, we're going to see where else we can go throughout the Dark World in order to continue our quest to defeat Ganon. Until next time, have a good day and take care.